Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I hope that you are all good. In today's video we are going to be doing a Matcha Ombre acrylic nail design. I'm going to be using the Diamond Nail Supplies acrylic system. I'm going to be using Clarity for my clear, Matcha for my green of course, and then my pink is going to be Extra, which is a really gorgeous pale pink, but it has this stunning sparkly shimmer running through it. It's a little bit hard to pick up here on camera. And then I'm going to finish off with top coating using my crystal top coat from Kiki London. So let's jump in. I have already prepped my nails, applied a peel off base because I was only doing this set for some practice and the video, and then I've applied the Glitter Planet pre-pinched stiletto tips. So we're going to jump straight into our acrylic design. I'm going to do the first nail in real time so you can see how I do all my application. So we're going straight in first of all with a small bead of Matcha, and I'm placing this down just away from where I want the blend to be, and then I'm going to flip my brush around and start gently blending that acrylic back. It's really important that you blend your coloured acrylic back into the nail bed, even if it's only slightly, just so that you've not got a harsh line where the color ends and then you're going to have to ombre over that. It just makes it a little bit tricky. So to go in and make it easier, just blend that acrylic back a little bit, and then I'm going to start pulling this color down towards the tip of the nail. Now I really wanted the green to be the focal point in this set of nails, so I've done my ombre a little lower than I normally do. Again, this can come down to personal preference. You can go a little closer to the cuticle area, or you can go a little closer to the tip with your blend, depending on the design that you're doing or the look that you're going for. I'm then going to come in with my second bead of acrylic, blend this back over the first bead and take this down towards the tip of the nail. This bead of acrylic was a little bit too wet, so it run over the sides. Now, normally this is quite easy to clean up, but when you're working on stiletto or pre-pinch tips, they are very closed at the tip of the nail because they give you that gorgeous pinched sculpted look. So I'm just going to take my brush and run this underneath the tip just to get out that little bit of acrylic that has run where my bead was too wet. And then I'm just going to come in with a second bead of acrylic to fix that up a little bit because the tip was a little bit too thin, and I want the colour to pop, and then I also want there to be a bit more thickness there because I'm only going to come in and do a thin encapsulation layer. So again, I'm placing that bead down. I always blend it back so it blends into the previous bead of acrylic that's already down on the nail. And then I'm just gently tapping this and pulling it down towards the tip of the nail, trying to keep the side walls nice and neat to minimize our finish filing. But I'm doing this using really nice light feathery strokes so we don't pull off that acrylic that we've laid down. So I always like to leave my first colour to set before I come in with my second colour. So I'm going to go in and repeat those steps with the Matcha on all of the other nails. And then we're going to come in and do our ombre with the Extra. So again, I'm picking up a small bead of acrylic and just going to pat and press this down to the tip of the nail and then come in with another bead. You can do this in one larger bead if you prefer. If you look at some of my older acrylic videos, back then I did used to prefer using quite a large acrylic brush and picking up larger beads of acrylic. I then didn't do acrylics for ages, and then when I come back to doing them recently, I've kind of preferred using a smaller brush. So this is a size 8 to 10, and then working with smaller medium size beads of acrylic. But this is personal preference, so you can do this step whichever way you're trained or whichever way it suits you. Another thing that I wanted to mention is I like to work with my acrylic on the more medium to dry side, and a lot of the brands of acrylic that I kind of prefer working with allow this. So for example, with Diamond Nail Supplies, I find you can really work with this both medium and dry when it comes to your ratio, and the same with CJP. That I always find works better for me when I use it more on the drier side. Another brand that I find works good for this as well is Glitterama, which I believe are now called Emma Louise Nail Systems. But then I've used some other brands of acrylic like Model Ones, Wow Bow, and I find that they work better on a wetter ratio and kind of like painting the color on. So how you work with your beads and your ratio is going to depend on the brand you are using, but I just find it a lot easier if I have a brand where I can use a more medium to dry consistency, even though right now I keep accidentally picking up 2 wet beads of acrylic. But I do find that it is quite versatile with diamond nail supplies, and you can kind of play around and get it to work very effortlessly for you, if that makes sense, whether you like to work more on the drier side or the wetter side. When I'm picking up my bead of acrylic, if it is too wet, you can just pat it down the back of your brush whilst the bead is still on there on your paper towel to drain out some of that excess monomer. And a lot of the time, if I pick up, say, a too dry bead, I've got enough monomer on my brush to still work with it. But when you pick up a too wet bead, I find it a lot harder to work with. So one thing I would say is I need to get into the habit of doing this. But if I pick up a too wet bead, it's too wet, even if you're going to drain the back of it, to just get rid of it and go in and pick up another bead of acrylic. As it's been a little while since I've been in the regular routine of doing acrylics consistently. I've had quite a big gap from doing them, where I was doing them like every week, and I do find that if I don't do them on a regular basis, things like my ratio go out the window. But that was a little tip I remember when I was training, like if you pick up a bad bead, just get rid of it. Don't try playing around with it on the nail. It's easier to just get rid of it and pick up a new one. So we're just coming to the end now of finishing up our tips with Matcha. So I'm just going to finish up the little finger, and I'm trying to show here a lot with my brush as well how I'm patting and pressing that acrylic into place and trying my best to keep the shape that we've got down on our clear base, so that we don't have lots of filing to do when it comes to the end. Now I haven't applied my Matcha too thickly because we are going to come in and encapsulate. I'll talk a lot more about encapsulation when we get to that step, but I've applied it thick enough that it gives us the nice color coverage, and you've still got a bit of strength and structure there. And just how gorgeous is this color? I absolutely love this one. It's one of my favorite green acrylics. So now we're going to go in and finish off our ombre using extra. So I always like to burp my brush, so I press it firmly down into my monomer. This releases any air bubbles. You'll see they come to the top of the monomer, and then I will press the side of my brush against my pot. You see there, I picked up my bead and I just wasn't happy with it, so I got rid of it and went in and picked up another one. Now for our ombre, the first bead I'm picking up on the slightly wetter side. This is going to be our bead that we're going to blend with. So I'm placing it down right over the top of where we blended out the matcha. And then I'm going to blend this slightly into the natural nail bed. This is going to make it easier when we come to apply our second bead of acrylic. And then I needed a little bit more monomer on my brush, but I'm just coming in and fading this color down. I could have picked this bead of acrylic up a little bit wetter and it would have blended more, but I didn't want to pick it up. I didn't want it to blend too much over the matcha. So I was kind of just, with that first bead of acrylic, working out what kind of consistency I want this to be. It is still quite a pigmented milky pink, and I don't want to cover up too much of that matcha. I just want to create a nice smooth blend. Any excess acrylic you can pull off. So if you pull it down to the tip of the nail and it's covering the tip of the nail too much, you can pull that off. I've then gone in with my cuticle bead, placed this down at the cuticle area, and then I'm just tapping it from side to side and pulling it down, but I'm not pulling it down as far as what I took the blend. I'm kind of just keeping it all in that back third, because this is also building up our apex area. This is a core color, so this color doesn't need to be encapsulated. You can build your strength and structure with it. So I'm blending it down to create the ombre, but I'm also keeping in mind that I want to keep a lot of that product there to build up the apex. And then when it comes to encapsulation, I won't have to fully encapsulate this part of the nail. So I'll just encapsulate from the fade down, a thin layer at the fade so that we can file without filing into the fade. And then I'll bring that acrylic down to the tip so that it builds up the strength and structure that's needed at the tip of the nail. So again, I'm going to go in and do this. So I'm picking up a small, medium consistency bead, placing it right down at that blend area, blending it back into where the natural nail bed is, and then gently just pulling this down to create a nice soft subtle blend over the matcha. We're then going to go in with our cuticle bead. This was quite a small bead, so I'm going to place it down, pop it into place, but then I'm going to come in with another bead to build up that apex area a little bit more. This is optional. You could actually leave your nail like this and then build up your apex with your clear acrylic. When it comes to an ombre though, I just always seem to prefer, if I'm using a core color, to build my apex up with my core color, and then is less encapsulation to do at the end of the design. But again, this is just personal preference. Cuticle application is one of the things that I've always struggled with acrylic, and it's something that I definitely need a lot more practice in, but I did find it really nice and easy with this particular acrylic. So we're just going to continue doing that on the remaining nails. Now I just wanted to mention I absolutely love color combinations right now, like putting two different colors together. I think I had already done pink and green not that long ago, but I see a matcha set of nails and I really just wanted to do a matcha ombre, so that was what I fancied today. But if you do have any acrylic color combinations you would like to see, do let me know in the comments below. I really need to order some new acrylic colors. I've got lots of colors, but they're mixed over different brands, and I kind of want to just get it down to only having a few brands and getting rid of the ones that I don't tend to reach for as much. So, and also I would love to try some acrylic brands that I've not actually tried before. I've got my eye on trying the Gems Now acrylic system, and there was another one that I see on TikTok. The name has completely gone from the top of my head, but if you have any acrylic recommendations, then do pop them in the comments below. We're just literally going to finish up the little finger now, and this bead I picked up way too wet, and as you can see it went to flood the the sidewall area. So I'm just chasing that bead a little bit with my acrylic brush. And this is why ratio is so important, because if you get the perfect ratio, you're not going to have that problem. And that for me, and especially with this acrylic system, is definitely more of a medium consistency. If you pick these beads up with that nice medium consistency, when you place it down on the nail, it doesn't run and flood. It kind of holds its own for enough time for you to move the acrylic into place where you want it to go. But that's something I've got out of touch with, and I definitely are finding it a little bit easier the more acrylics I've been doing. I've tried to aim to do at least a little bit of acrylic practice or an acrylic video once a week, and thank you for all of those who have been watching them. So this is what they looked like once we had finished applying our extra. So I'm now going to come in and encapsulate with their clarity. So I picked up my first bead of acrylic, blending it back into that nail bed area, and then just pulling it down towards the tip of the nail. And like I said, I only need a thin encapsulation layer because we have built up the apex. I did want to come in and apply a little bit more at the tip of the nail because this was quite thin and I don't want to risk snapping it when it comes to filing. And of course, if you're wearing these, you want to make sure that you've got a lot of your product built up in the back third for your apex, but then kind of like a spine running down towards the tip of the nail. But the tip of your nail should still be quite thin, but you want to have that structure running down the center of the nail. So that's why I always like to come in and just pop a small bead of acrylic down at the tip, especially when I'm doing long nails like this, blending it back, and I'm pulling the acrylic from the sides into the center of the nail, so that structure is running down the center. I really hope that makes sense. But here we're just going to finish this off. So I'm going to come in, place my bead down, flip it back and blend it back into the previous acrylic, pull it down towards the tip of the nail, and then come in with a second bead just to build up that tip area a little bit more. I'm always checking the nails from all angles as well, and if I feel as though one nail is thinner than another nail that I've previously done, I'll pick up a bigger bead of clear acrylic to encapsulate with. So this nail, for example, right at the tip was quite thin, so I come in with that third bead just to blend it back and then pull it down towards the tip of the nail, just to make sure that the structure is consistent across all of the nails in the set. And then I always like to gently brush the acrylic over, like when we were applying the acrylic on, like when we was applying the matcha at the start. I like to make sure that I'm kind of like feathering it out so that it's creating a lot of the shape with the acrylic, and then this way you've got less finish filing to do. So that just makes it a little bit easier, because if you go in and apply your acrylic quite thick and quite bulky or uneven, you are going to have more finish filing to do. And whenever I'm doing nails, filing is my least favorite part of a set. So just finished up encapsulating here. I am going to leave these to fully set, so you want to make sure your acrylic is hardened before you go in and file them. Once they have hardened, they will sound, you can tap your file or your brush on them and you'll be able to feel that they've hardened. Basically, you get like a nice tap sound back, whereas when the acrylic's still soft, it won't give you that sound. I really hope that makes sense. So I'm coming in first of all with a 100 grit side. I really love these 100 rectangular files files from Kiki London, and I'm just kind of fixing up any acrylic that has run underneath the nail, just any little unevenness. I'm just going in and fixing that up with my file. I've left the first nail in real time, I've sped up doing the second nail, and I filed the rest off camera because I find filing really boring, so I end up sticking something on to watch. Once I have kind of just fixed up underneath, I'm going to come in and hold my file flat up against the nail and start shaping. I wanted to round off the tips of these a little bit. I know other people might want a really sharp stiletto, but I just didn't necessarily want that with this set. Then I'm going to come in and debulk. So to debulk, I'm coming up one side wall, going around that apex area, but I'm avoiding the cuticle area, and then I'm coming down the other side. This is just going to kind of refine the shape, and this is where if you applied your acrylic too thick, too bulky or uneven, you'll have more of this step to do. And then I'm just going over the entire nail to smooth everything out, make sure everything looks nice and contoured, make sure that there's no lumps or bumps. And I'm always checking the nail from all angles when I'm doing this, and any areas that might need more filing than others, I'll focus on those. Because this is a 100 grit file, it will file your acrylic quite quickly, so that's something to bear in mind. And here I kind of was just trying to show you guys a side shot of where we've got our acrylic nice and flush and thin at the cuticle area, and then we've got that raised area where it goes into the apex, and then it tapers out and goes thinner again as we get down towards the tip of the nail. I don't usually file under my nail like this, but I just had a little bit of acrylic that was being a bit stubborn and sticking there, so I was trying to get rid of that. I do also then like to come in with a 180 grit file. So once I've done a majority of the filing, the debulking, the contouring, refining, and I'm like 90% happy with how the nail is looking, I'll then switch to a 180 grit file. So this file has a 100 and 180 grit side. I'm using the 180 grit and it's a lot softer, and I'll use this for going around that cuticle area. And the reason I want to use a softer file here is, one, because you're going quite close to the skin and cuticles, and two, because I've applied the acrylic a little bit thinner at that cuticle area, so I don't want to go in with a 100 grit file because we risk filing it off or filing into it, filing it too thin, and then you're going to end up with lifting issues. So I just go around a few sweeps around that cuticle area, and then that's going to blend it in. Everything's going to be nice and refined, and then I like to just go over the shape with my 180 grit side of the file because I then feel as though I get a nice sharp shape. Now I'm going to jump on and do exactly the same on the second nail. I left it in just because I had a few videos where I was asked if I could leave in filing, so I thought I'd leave one in real time so I can talk through the steps, and then I've left the second in. I try and file consistently and do the same on all of the nails, so I'll go in with that same routine of debulking the shape, fixing up any unevenness of the acrylic that's come off of the base, and then I'll go up one side wall, over and around that apex area, and then down the other side wall, and then just go over the entire nail, always checking from all angles and just doing extra filing where it's needed. You might find that it's not needed, and then it's going to speed up your filing routine. And then I'm just going to want to come in and shape that nail. And to shape the nail, you always want to make sure that you're holding your file nice and flat up against the acrylic, not angling it inwards or angling it outwards, because this is going to kind of change how the overall shape looks. To get that nice sharp shape, you want to make sure that you're holding your file flat against the nail, and then just switching up to that 180 grit side to finish off around the cuticle area and just sharpen the edges again. And then I'm always kind of just going in and out and fixing up any areas because I was trying to get these as perfect as I could. And you can really see the difference between those first two nails to the ring and little finger. And then off camera I did finish off filing, and now we're going to go in and buff in. I'm just using one of these little buffing blocks. These have a coarser side and a smoother side, so I like to go in, just completely go over the entire nail with the coarser side, and then I'll switch to the smoother side. And I find this just leaves you with enough kind of like scratch to the nail that your top coat is going to stick without any issues and not going to get any chipping, but it smooths out any of the deeper scratches that are left behind from filing, and I feel as though it just gives an overall nice finish to the nail. So I just go in and do that on all of the nails, and then we really need to give these a good clean because oh my god, they are dusty. So I always like to go in when it comes to cleaning the dust away from an acrylic set of nails with a dry dust first of all. I feel as though this just picks up a lot of that finer dust nice and easy. So I'll go in with my dust brush and just give them a really good rub with the dust brush. And then I like to go in with a harder brush and some alcohol and give them a really good scrub, and then this just gets out any of that remaining dust. You can, of course, if you'd prefer, go in and just wash your hands with soap and water to get rid of any of the dust. But I do find certain soaps leave behind kind of like an oily residue on the surface of the nail. And then when you come in and top coat, it makes your top coat pit, so you're going to have to wipe the nails with alcohol anyway. So I just now skip the washing my hands part and I'll just go in and scrub with some alcohol before coming in and top coating, which is exactly where we are now. So I'm going to come in and use my Kiki London Crystal top coat. This is one of my favorite top coats. It gives such a beautiful shine no matter what sort of product you're using it over the top of. So you want to be really careful when you're applying your top coat that you don't get any on the skin and cuticles. Talking of cuticles, I know at this point my cuticles now look really dry. My skin always reacts this way when I use any kind of alcohol to clean with, but it's fine once we come in and apply a little bit of cuticle oil. So I popped my top coat in to cure for 60 seconds, but then before applying my cuticle oil, I'm just going to give it another 60 seconds to cool. Otherwise, sometimes your cuticle oil can dull the shine. So here I'm going to be using the Coconut Escape cuticle oil from Kiki London. I'm going to pop a dot of this down and then give it a really good rub and massage in, and then you are ready to see the finished look. So this was a bit of a longer video, so I really hope you all enjoyed watching, or it felt longer anyway. But yeah, if you did enjoy it, please do give the video a thumbs up, leave me a comment below, let me know how you're all doing. If you have any particular designs you'd like to see, pop them in the comments below and I'll be happy to give them a go. I really loved how this set turned out. I feel like I might need to do them in a shorter set so they are a bit more wearable for me, but I do love doing long nails for videos. But yeah, once again, thank you all so much for watching. Lots of love, take care, bye bye.